Good evening. Welcome to another boring version of Diatribes from the voice of Doom. Now here's your befuddled and befogged host, voice of Doom. Well, I don't have to worry about the copyright laws on that song because I wrote it. And I didn't play much of the instruments or sing or arrange it, but I wrote the song. And I did some keyboard work in there. But I was going to do a boring diatribe, kind of personal diuretic, because I have a fan, and the fan wanted me to talk about my musical history. So since I only have a few people that comment, then I will do it, and it's easy. I don't have to think much about it. I just go back in history and tell you the story of music from my standpoint. Well, my dad was a pianist. My mom was a violinist. I think I've talked about this before, but they were in charge of the orchestra in their high school back when they had high schools that were actually functional and they had orchestras and bands, and they had combos and all kinds of stuff. They were big high schools. So my dad was kind of the conductor in a way. He played piano, so he didn't really have too much to do with playing live, but my mom was the violinist, and they ended up having to go and buy some music at some stores in Seattle, and they started dating, and the rest is history. When I was born, 5 years old, my dad was playing piano for a living, and that's what I thought I'd be doing, because it seemed to me that that's what you do. You do what your dad did. So my dad's a piano player, I'll be a piano player. So I assumed I would be. And, you know, I probably could have been, but I took lessons. They made me take lessons, and they weren't that fun. And at the same time I was taking lessons, I was kind of fiddling around with my own, just playing songs I like to play and just picking them out in my head. So I spent a lot of time doing that, not much time doing my lessons, and so the teachers got mad at me. And so I hated lessons, and the teacher that I had taught me a little trick, because she figured I don't like doing the music, reading it. I don't like having to play all this classical music, and I'd rather just play just pop songs. So she taught me a little trick with music, and it just is very simple. If you can have an ear for music and you can pick out the melody in your right hand, then you just simply read the guitar chords that are printed above the music, and you read the words and go, this chord here, G, and then D, and then A, and you just use that as a guide, and you play a G bass and play a G chord, and eventually you learn to arpeggiate and do all kinds of things, so you sound kind of like you know what you're doing. But it was a godsend, because then I could buy music at the music store anytime I wanted to and learn all the songs without having to read the music. So I learned Elton John, I learned Cat Stevens, and I learned Steely Dan, and I learned Stevie Wonder, and I just kept getting more and more progressive. If I could find the music books to certain albums, I thought I, really got a treasure, because, they were the keys to figuring out these songs that I couldn't figure out in my head. Joni Mitchell, things of that nature that are pretty complicated. Chicago, I was playing all that kind of stuff from the music, and enjoying it, and I was getting better, and people were kind of going, yeah, you can kind of play pretty good. So I felt like I was, developed, and then I kept arguing with people about music in high school, and they were always saying how great some idiot band was, Ambrosia, or I don't care what, and I'm like, no, come on. And I'd mentioned bands that I really thought were good that nobody heard of yet. They were very obscure bands that nobody, at that time knew about, like Queen, Kansas, Steely Dan, keep going back to that. Saying, this is better music. If you can't hear that, there's something wrong with you. And they'd always come back with, everyone's allowed their own opinion. And it's like, no, I refuse to accept that. I do not want you to have an opinion if you say that, I don't know, Tony, Orlando, and Don are more sophisticated music than Steely Dan or Stevie Wonder. Just wasn't going to put up with it. And people would tell me, we have a right to our own opinion, so okay. So I was doing this and that. I played a few gigs here and there. I really didn't play anything because it was too hard. What are you going to do? Buy a keyboard and a mic and an amp and a sound system, PA, so you can go around and play gigs in the 70s? Everything was expensive back then, very. So I just more or less played to myself, and then I moved to the Big Island from Honolulu, and I decided to go back to school and get a degree. And I said, I'm going to get a music degree because I'm going to prove that I'm right. I don't give a crap about a career. I just want to prove that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to music. So that's what I did. I went to the music professors and I said, I know how to play piano. I have a lot of experience in music. I should be able to breeze through this. And they let me try. They put me up ahead on music theory. I missed the first semester of music theory, and they put me right in the second because they said if you don't take it now, you're going to have to wait another year to catch up. So I took the second semester cold, thinking I knew everything. I knew nothing. I was lost for a long time because they were doing 4-part harmonies things with chorals, alto, soprano, tenor, and bass, or whatever, baritone, whatever they were. Doing 4-part harmony, choral, I don't know what they used to call it. I've forgotten most of it, but it was more difficult than I thought it was going to be. They were talking about intervals and just the way notes are put together, a passing tone, all these different things. I didn't do any research for this lecture, so I don't remember a lot of that stuff. I could be frilly if I wanted. But suffice it to say, it was harder than I thought. Then I was taking music history, thinking that would be so easy. How hard could it be to study Mozart and Beethoven? Well, they started with the medieval music, and we had to analyze motets and madrigals and weird, Gregorian chant, and it was much harder than I thought. But fortuitously enough, I decided since I was getting a music degree that I'd better do some musical performances. So I started with playing at the pub, playing bar music, and that went well. People loved it. Then I got together with a guy who played guitar, and we did a little duo, and we did a lot of stuff like Paul Simon and free and easy listening bar music. And then a band came into college that were playing something completely different than what I was used to. And they were a punk band basically, and it was fresh and exciting and it was basic, and I was like, I don't know about this, but I got in with them and started playing keyboards with them, and I took the damn upright piano to house parties we carry a piano into the house. We carry the piano to an outside pavilion party. Let's get a bunch of guys drunk off their ass and put it in the back of a truck. So I was playing with this punk band, and I was kind of having a good time with it. It was just raw. Played a little Clash, played a little Gang of Four. They weren't that good. We weren't that good, but we had fun. At the same time, got in with the jazz band in college. They told me, they asked me to play piano in the jazz band, which was great because that meant that I was probably the best guy for the position. Not a big college. If you have never played in a big band, you don't know what you're missing, because that's the greatest feeling in the world. When 20 guys can get tight, 3 bones, 4 trumpets, full sax section, rhythm section, and you get tight on some of those jazz numbers, man, you feel good. Everybody feels good. It's great stuff. And I had a great time. We were stoned the whole freaking time. One guy was actually not even a student. He played baritone sax, and since the professor couldn't find a bari sax, and he was the only guy that knew how to play, he said, just be in the band, you can do whatever you want. I looked the other way. He was smoking constantly. I mean, constantly. In the car, in the hotel at 7 in the morning. It's part of the deal. I was one of his roommates. Now, I'm playing in a punk band, and suddenly a bunch of people leave. One guy goes off to D.C. and becomes a lawyer. Another guy falls into the abyss. And then there's just me and a girl and the bass player guy, who was a person of color, and the girl was Filipino, and I was Caucasoid, and we had nobody. And I got together with that guitar guy of mine and said, why don't you join in and we'll start a whole new thing with this kind of new wavy punk alternative and cover band. And we started learning songs, and he said, yeah, all right. And he turned out to be pretty good, man, because he played lead and rhythm and sang lead vocals a lot of times. Little keyboards on the side, so I didn't give him enough credit when we were actually a band, but we got better and better. We found the right drummer. You really need a good drummer. If you're going to be in a stage band, if you don't have a good drummer, don't even try, because the drummer keeps everything together. Now, we were all stoners, big time, and drinkers, except the drummer. The drummer didn't touch alcohol, didn't touch marijuana, and that was the key to our success, because he wasn't wasted when he's trying to keep a beat. So we became relatively successful. We were pretty much the house band of the Big Island from 1981 to about 83. And we ended up going to Oahu, go to Waikiki, and we moved the whole band there for the summer, which is no easy feat, and played a punk club, and it was great. I mean, what else can you say? You're playing 4 or 5 nights a week in a punk dive, and the owners are out of their minds, and they don't know what the hell's going on, so we're getting away with bloody murder. And we won the crowd over very easily within 5 minutes. And then the next summer we got luckier, because we got to play at the biggest nightclub in Honolulu called The Wave, and it was packed all summer long, all night long, packed to the gills. And they liked us, so we felt like, yeah, we're moving up. But we knew in our hearts that we were going to split up soon, because I was going to graduate. My guitar buddy wasn't going to go back to the Big Island, and the other two had to go back and finish their degree. So we knew we were going to split up, and then everybody acted surprised when we said, yeah, we're done. So we could have been a good new wave band along the lines of Blondie or something of that nature. Romeo Void, you know, that kind of thing. After the band broke up, we started another band, me and the guitar player, and it was a progressive new wave band. Talking Heads, English beat, sophisticated, complicated songs, and everybody had a different idea of what they wanted to do, and it was hard to get rehearsals because this is going really long. Hard to get rehearsals and get everybody together. So that didn't take off. I don't want to make this more than it is now, so I'll have to do 2 because I have to go on. So I'll leave it here. Leave you hanging to see what I do after that. Alright. Thanks. Enjoy.